In just 9 months, a nation was born. 3 million people were killed. 200,000 women were raped. 10 million refugees fled across the border. And the world watched. This is not just a war story. This is the story of a genocide, a cover-up, a superpower rivalry that decided the fate of millions. And at the center of it all, one question. How does a country break in half? To understand 1971, we have to go back to 1947, when British India was partitioned. 2 countries were born, India and Pakistan. But Pakistan was strange. It had 2 wings, West Pakistan, near Afghanistan, East Pakistan, thousands of miles away, surrounded by India. Same flag, same religion, but completely different people. The East Pakistanis spoke Bengali. They had their own music, poetry, literature, a culture stretching back thousands of years. The West Pakistanis spoke Urdu. They controlled the army, they controlled the government, they controlled the money. And they wanted the East to disappear. Not physically, not yet, but culturally. In 1948, Pakistan's first Governor-General, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, flew to Dhaka. He stood before a crowd of millions and he declared, Urdu, and only Urdu, would be the national language. The crowd fell silent. Then the anger erupted. That was the first crack, in a country that was never truly whole. East Pakistan had more people than West Pakistan, but almost no political power. In 1970, East Pakistanis made up 56% of the entire population of Pakistan. Yet the military had less than 5% Bengali officers. The entire country was run by the West. For 20 years, the East burned quietly. Protests, strikes, suppression. Then came 1970. Pakistan held its first ever democratic election. The Awami League, the party of the East, was led by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. The people called him Bangabandhu, friend of Bengal. He campaigned on one simple promise: autonomy for the East, control over their own economy, their own language, their own future. The people voted. And they voted in numbers that stunned the world. The Awami League won 167 out of 169 seats in East Pakistan. They had an outright majority in the entire National Assembly. Under any democratic system, Sheikh Mujib should have become Prime Minister of Pakistan. But General Yahya Khan, the military ruler in the West, refused to transfer power. He postponed the assembly session indefinitely. In the East, millions took to the streets. The rage had finally broken through. March 7th, 1971. Race course ground, Dhaka. 1 million people gathered. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman stepped up to the microphone, and he gave a speech that would echo through history. He did not formally declare independence. He was careful. But every word he spoke was a call to arms. He said, "The struggle this time is the struggle for emancipation. The struggle this time is the struggle for independence." The crowd roared. UNESCO later declared this speech one of the greatest speeches in human history. But in Islamabad, the generals heard something different. They heard a threat, and they decided to crush it. March 25th, 1971, midnight. The Pakistani military launched Operation Searchlight. The orders were brutal and precise. Target the intellectuals, target the students, target the Hindus, target the Awami League. Within hours of the operation beginning, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was arrested. But before they took him, he transmitted a declaration. Bangladesh was independent. On the streets of Dhaka, Pakistani soldiers opened fire on civilians. The army attacked the Dhaka University campus. Students sleeping in their dormitories were shot in their beds. Professor after professor was dragged from their homes. Doctors, lawyers, journalists executed. The world would later call it a genocide. At the time, Pakistan called it a crackdown on rebels. In Washington, D.C., President Richard Nixon called it an internal matter. The U.S. Consul General in Dhaka, Archer Blood, sent a telegram to Washington calling the Pakistani military operation a selective genocide. He and his entire staff signed it. It became known as the Blood Telegram. Nixon and Kissinger ignored it. They continued supporting Pakistan because they needed Islamabad as a backdoor channel to China. But the East did not surrender. From the ashes of March 25th rose a resistance, the Mukti Bahini, the freedom fighters. They were farmers, students, former soldiers, men and women who had nothing left to lose. India watched from across the border. 10 million refugees were pouring in. The human cost was staggering. The political cost was even higher. Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi made a decision. She would not stand by. India began secretly training the Mukti Bahini, weapons, logistics, intelligence. For 9 months, the guerrilla war raged inside East Pakistan. Pakistani soldiers hunted freedom fighters through the jungle. Villages were burned, women were taken. The atrocities were documented, but the world looked away. December 3rd, 1971. Pakistan made a fatal mistake. Hoping to preempt an Indian invasion, Pakistan launched airstrikes on Indian air bases. It was a gamble. It failed completely. India declared war. The Indian military moved on 3 fronts simultaneously: east, west, and from the sea. In the east, it was over in 13 days. The Indian army, combined with the Mukti Bahini, surrounded Dhaka on all sides. The Pakistani military had no escape. December 16th, 1971. Pakistani General A.A.K. Niazi signed the Instrument of Surrender. 93,000 Pakistani soldiers laid down their arms. It was the largest military surrender since World War II. And on that day, Bangladesh was born. The United States sent its aircraft carrier USS Enterprise into the Bay of Bengal as a show of force against India, not Pakistan. Nixon and Kissinger were furious that India was winning. But the Soviet Union countered by deploying its own naval fleet. For a brief moment, American and Soviet warships faced each other in the Bay of Bengal over a war that had nothing to do with either of them. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was released from a Pakistani prison. He flew home to Dhaka. Millions lined the streets, weeping, cheering, embracing. He had dreamed of this moment for 20 years. But the new nation was broken. The economy was destroyed. The infrastructure was in ruins. The intellectuals, the teachers, the doctors, the engineers had been systematically murdered in the final days of the war. Pakistan wanted to ensure that Bangladesh could not function. It was a wound that took decades to heal. And the scars, they are still there. In 1971, the world chose convenience over conscience. A superpower backed a genocide because of geopolitics. A people were massacred because of a Cold War calculation. But the people of Bangladesh refused to be erased. They fought with bamboo sticks against tanks. They fought with songs against silence. They fought with bare hands against an army. And they won. 3 million lives. 9 months of horror. 13 days of war. That is the price Bangladesh paid to exist. Every time you see that green and red flag, remember what it cost. Because freedom is never free. It is always paid for. always in blood. If this story moved you, you are watching War and Military History, where every conflict has a cause, every border has a cost, and every war leaves something behind. Subscribe and stay with us, because history is never truly over.